everyone, it's Holly Marie King, and we are now on to the Emblem Knights final draft. It's the very first chapter. I'm super excited for this one because this one actually is a lot better than the first one. And again, I'm having technical difficulties yet again where my camera's not working. I think it's because I have to update my OBS. So for this one, we're not going to see my face. Sorry. But anyway, well, let's just get started. I'm excited. Alright. The Emblem Knights. Part 1. The Gathering. Chapter 1. The Knights of Old. The senior advisor looked amongst the young children standing in groups. They were as young as 3 and as old as 8 years of age. He smiled grittily at his bounty. The villagers had put up a fight, but his army had won. Now the real war for the country could begin. Sir, the men are starving. A soldier walked up to the senior advisor. Shouldn't we focus on feeding them instead of taking these children? The senior advisor hooked his cane around the back of the man's neck. Fool! Do you have any idea what these children are worth? No, sir, the soldier said, wincing in pain. These children will open up many possibilities for us, the senior advisor growled. He released the soldier, looking back at his bounty once again. Why not take the adults? Why this village? The soldier wanted to know. There is some sort of deformity in the babies of this village. It took me many years to get through the rumors to this place. The senior advisor explained. The ability appears best in children, and unless they are trained properly, the ability will disappear with age. It almost seems cruel to force children to fight for us, the soldier said. The senior advisor glared at the soldier, making the man cower. They are not children. They're walking weapons, he said, looking away. How long until I can use my weapons? It will take 4 years, the soldier informed him. Even then, I'm not so sure a 7-year-old should go to war. 4 years is long enough, the senior advisor said, turning from the children. I was 4 when they took me from my family. I was put with other children that could use water like me. Not long after, I was placed with my brothers. We tracked trained together. Wow, even with it fixing it, that sounds weird. We trained together for 4 years and then forced to go to war. After 9 long years of watching our friends die and protecting one another, we are finally granted our freedom. 2 years have passed since then, and the senior advisor basks in his win, giving me and our fallen comrades a bad name. We wish nothing more than peace, but as long as he lives, we will never truly be free from his reach. His soldiers pose as us, making the good people of our village suffer and giving us a terrible name. I'm Daisuke, a true Emblem Knight. 2 years after the retirement of the Emblem Knights, the village began being raided for children once again. The previous war had been forgotten, and so it was a surprise for the villagers. Daisuke saw the wagons from his home, right outside the village. He walked up to the soldiers as they passed and waved at a soldier that was marching down the dirt road. What's going on? Daisuke asked him. War is happening again, the soldier answered him. Back in line, soldier, a man on a horse ordered. The soldier obliged the man. Daisuke. Lieutenant, Daisuke said with a nod, I ask you to not interfere. You served your time. And what if I do? Daisuke asked, crossing his arms. Then you better be quick about it, the lieutenant said gruffly. He kicked his horse into gear and followed the rest of the soldiers. Daisuke watched him go, and then headed for the town. There was one family he felt responsible for and had to get to them in time. So, little breaks in this. But essentially, each break is time passing in a different perspective. If anyone's confused, just that out there. Stop! A girl with long brown hair protested as soldiers proceeded to burn down her home. It was all she had to keep her and her family alive. She grabbed the arm of one of the soldiers to only get his attention. The soldier tossed her aside as though the girl were a piece of trash, not worthy to touch such an arm. This is what happens when you don't pay your taxes, little girl, he said, soldiers to only get his attention. Oh, he said roughly. I'm not paying attention. He then turned from the girl and not needing to pay her any more attention. Joey, stay close, an old man spoke from across the street. He watched the girl with a look of frustration on his face. He held his grandson close to him, not wanting him to get hurt. If you try to help her, you'll only get hurt. Since the soldiers were the men of the man that had taken over the village, they could do as they pleased, with no worries of punishment. And they most likely would throw anyone who tried to stop them amongst the wreckage of the girl's house and burn them with the building. No one wished to find out if this were the truth, so they all stood back and could only watch helplessly as their home and livelihood was taken from her. But they'll hurt Yuri, Joey protested, fighting against his grandfather. His sister stood up from the street, grabbing at another soldier in hopes to stop them from destroying her home further. The old man struggled to keep the 8-year-old under control. There's nothing we can do. He closed his eyes and looked down at the ground in shame. His heart was being torn in half as he was forced to choose whether to protect his granddaughter or his grandson. They would kill us if we interfered. Joey wiggled his way out from under his arms and made a break for his sister. "Joey, no!" his grandfather shouted as he grabbed at thin air. His feet began to move, but a young man stepped in front of him. Daisuke? Daisuke had silky blue hair that made him stand out from everyone else in the tiny village. It was short and well taken care of, which most women thought of him as handsome, which made most of the men jealous. He had been on his way home from selling the vegetables from his farm when he noticed the commotion at the edge of town. He grabbed Joey as soon as he reached him and handed him over to his grandfather. "There you are, old one. Keep a closer eye on him now," Daisuke said, nodding to the old man with a smile on his face. The old man smiled back in relief at him. "Thank you, Daisuke," he said sincerely. This time, he had a tighter grip around the boy's shoulders. Wow, I can't read today. It wasn't necessary this time. Joey knew his sister was about to be saved. "If you'll excuse me," Daisuke lightly bowed his head as he turned towards the young woman. He pulled her gently back from the building and murmured in her ear, "It will do your family no good if you are dead." "It does us no good if our livelihood and home are taken from us either," the girl protested. Her eyes were balls of rage, and she was out of breath. "I'll take care of everything," Daisuke said to the girl, patting her on the shoulder. Wow, I want to call it a shoulder a soldier today, apparently. Our shoulders are soldiers, by the way. The girl watched him confused as he approached the soldiers. "Is there any chance I can retrieve some valuable items from the home before you burn the place down?" "What gives you the right to make requests from us?" the soldier snapped at him. Without hesitation, Daisuke pulled some money out from inside his sleeve. "Will this speak for me?" he asked as the coin found its way into the soldier's hand. The soldier looked down at his hand for a moment. "Very well, if you insist," he said, stepping aside, biting the coin between his molars. "Be quick about it, or I'll burn the building down with you still in it." He then turned to the other 4 soldiers that were there with him to see who would get the bigger cut. Daisuke ignored their idiot antics and headed towards the building. He wasted no time grabbing the items that he knew the family would want or need. He emerged with a bag full of items and went on his way without even acknowledging the soldiers that were lighting the torches to burn the place. "Let's get this done, boys," the leader said, leading the throwing of the torches. Yuri covered her brother's eyes as she watched her home burning down in horror. Daisuke handed the bag of things over to the grandfather and grabbed Yuri's shoulders, getting her attention. "Come with me," he said to the 3 of them. Joey and their grandfather cut their losses and followed his direction. But Yuri couldn't tear her eyes away. There were too many bad memories tied to that place to just simply walk away from it. A gentle hand grabbed her other shoulder and pulled her away, but she protested. "There's nothing left for you here," Daisuke said to her gently. "We need to get you out of here." "It's funny," Yuri said to him, still looking back at the burning building for a moment. "So many terrible things happened in that house, and yet I feel as though a part of me is being torn from me." "There's no need to hold on to such painful memories," Daisuke informed her, finally getting her to move. "I wish someone would teach those stupid soldiers a lesson," Joey growled as Daisuke and Yuri joined them. Their grandfather carried the bag while Daisuke led Yuri by the shoulders. Can I stop saying shoulders now? "Back before you were born, there were knights that protected us, but they disappeared a couple years back. They fought alongside the soldiers," the grandfather said happily, the bag swinging back and forth between his shoulder blades. Daisuke cleared his throat uncomfortably, the dirt kicking up around them as they walked down the path. The group of 4 walked between the deep tracks left behind by wagons that had traveled through. Joey's eyes grew wide at his grandfather's words. "Really?" Joey asked excitedly. "What were they like?" Yuri shouldered out of Daisuke's grip, her jaw set, but her voice relatively calm. "When did they become knights?" she asked over her brother. She didn't much care, but she was interested in the history lesson. That's a paragraph. "They were all taken from our village when they were about your brother's age." "Why do you think there are so few children living in the village now?" her grandfather answered her. Daisuke took the bag from him and walked on ahead. He wasn't interested in the conversation. I always thought it was because we had nowhere else to go, Yuri answered with a shrug of her shoulders. What were they like? Joey whined, jumping up and down in hopes to get their attention. Young boys from the ages of 3 to 10 years of age were taken from the village to be trained extensively for 4 years and then sent off to battle. They were forced to grow up fast as the emblems they were given showed the terrible powers they were to possess. Each emblem appeared on different parts of their bodies and in an assortment of different colors. The grandfather paused and Daisuke slowed down, hearing what he had just said. I believe 28 boys were taken and only 6 live to this day. At least that's the rumor that spread throughout the village. No one has seen or heard of an Emblem Knight for some time now. As fascinating as that sounds, grandmother, I find it hard to believe that such knights exist or ever did exist. He said with her head in the air now. She was the one walking faster than everyone else. I'm done talking about such stupid and pointless things. You seem very knowledgeable of the knights, Daisuke said to the old man, adjusting the bag on his shoulder, giving one of his shoulders a break. What were they like? What were they like? Joey asked anxiously. He was hopping up and down from one foot to the other. He was extremely upset that he was being ignored. It doesn't matter, Joey. You're better off not knowing, Yuri called back over her shoulder. She kept moving farther away from them. Joey ran up to her and crossed his arms in front of her. But I want to know, he grumbled. Yuri ruffled his hair and kept going. All right. But they weren't very good people, Joey, Yuri said to him. Joey went back to his grandfather, grabbing a hold of one of his legs. That's not true, is it, Grandpa? Joey asked the old man. Daisuke looked horrified. But anything about them. Honestly, if your issue is with the final 6, then I don't know who they are, Yuri reassured him. But the knights that had emblems, like the ones that grandfather describes, sound a lot like the men that used to come to our inn and cause lots of disruptions. One even raped a poor woman. If you can show me proof of them being otherwise, then I won't generalize, but I'm only speaking from experience. She then turned back to walking farther down the path from the rest of them. Daisuke blinked at her for a moment, but then caught up with her on the path, leaving the grandfather and Joey behind. I understand that those men upset you, but the knights I have met with the same emblems were nothing more than good men. They in fact stopped a man or two from raping defenseless women during the war. He countered her point. Your word alone doesn't prove a thing, Yuri said to him, shaking her head. Daisuke shook his head and kept pace with her. Fine, believe what you will. Yuri, if you know of the knights, then why were you asking about them? A grandfather asked from a little ways off. I was just trying to see if there was a believably good part of them, Yuri said, stopping, and so she could allow her grandfather to catch up. I know it was a little sneaky of me, but I was only curious. So wait, were they good or bad? Joey asked, looking from Yuri to his grandfather, confused. I believe that would be left up to your own opinion, Daisuke answered him. How are you going to go through life judging an entire group of people off of one small faction's actions? Actions. The grandfather asked Yuri, crossing his arms over his chest. I'm sorry that I don't like the Emblem Knights. It's not like the world will end because of how I feel about some people, Yuri said irritably. She then turned and started walking again. What is your reason as to why you don't like them so much? Her grandfather asked, prodding further. Perhaps we may talk about something else, Daisuke said, trying to avoid further conversation on the matter, but unfortunately, he was heard by deaf ears. Do I really have to have a reason? Yuri asked, avoiding the question. You must have some sort of reason, the grandfather said, not letting the subject die. We've gone pretty far from town now, Joey said excitedly. He was bored of the Emblem Knights discussion. I'm done talking about this, Yuri said to her grandfather. You may feel foolish after saying it out loud, and then we can figure out your true feelings, her grandfather said, prodding even further. Ugh, are we there yet? Yuri cried out in frustration. Not quite, but if you look down from the turn up ahead, you can see the whole of my property, Daisuke said to her, pointing at the bent up ahead. Really? Joey asked excitedly. Daisuke gave him a crooked smile and nodded to him, giving the boy the energy to run ahead. There it was, all in all its glory. The house itself was quite humble-looking compared to the giant area that it occupied. The house sat between the end of the road and a giant training yard that was set up. The training yard was set up with a fence surrounding the whole thing. There were 10 training dummies set up for practice, with an archery ring to the right of it with 5 targets set up. It was a little unused with overgrown grass that you could get lost in for hours. Though the house was humble, it was big enough to house 20 people, if need be, and it was a decent size. A river ran through the property with a plot of land placed over top, where a small herb garden was blocked off and a small shed was set up, while the river continued to curve around the back of the house. There was a giant tree on the other side of the house that stood protectively over the house itself. It was a lovely-looking place. How many people live with you? Yuri gasped, her eyes round with shock. I mean, surely there are more than people here. This place is too big for one person. Daisuke smiled bitterly. No, it's just myself living here. There were some family once upon a time, but they moved on a long time ago. But there is a path that goes around the place that's perfect for morning runs. Yuri looked shocked. Well, that'll be a nice change of pace, she said, smiling. Your jogs will be more quiet from now on, Daisuke agreed with a smile. How do you know I like to take jogs in the morning? Yuri asked, eyeing him suspiciously. Daisuke shrugged. It's not a big place. Word gets around, he answered, taking the lead down the path. Me first, Yuri exclaimed, running ahead, wanting to be the first one on the land. He couldn't wait to jump into the river. Don't worry, it's not going anywhere, Daisuke said with a chuckle. But he still moved aside for the boy to run by. This place is This place is too large for us, the grandfather said, staring at the property with a grimace on his face. Nonsense! My home is quite cozy, and you and your family are welcome as long as you would like to stay, Daisuke assured him, patting the old man on the back. Why is this place so huge? Yuri whispered in amazement. The closer they walked to it, the bigger it seemed. It's as big as it needs to be, Daisuke said with a nostalgic smile on his face. Yuri stared at his face for a moment and made a realization that Daisuke wasn't telling them everything. There must have been a few people living here with him once upon a time. Well, it's a very nice place, she said with a smile. Daisuke smiled a little broader. It's home, he said happily as he walked further on to his land. He's a little weird, Joey said, walking over to his sister. He just has a lot on his mind, Yuri said to her brother with a small smile. Were you going to explore the place? Well, yeah, but I got a little nervous, he answered, her looking sheepishly at the ground. How will we ever be able to pay for such an amazing place, the grandfather asked Daisuke, his mouth gaping open. Daisuke frowned at the old man's words. Don't even think of needing to give me money. I offered my home to you because I wanted to, not because I wanted a profit out of you. Please, just make yourselves at home. Daisuke went to the door and opened it so that the 3 newcomers could peer inside. Welcome home. Chapter 2, a nice change. Woohoo! So excited to finally be reading this, and unfortunately when I was in the middle of reading it I forgot how I read things on here. So sorry if you were actually trying to read along and I was messing it up, but the next one will definitely be an improvement. But yeah, anyway, this book is available on Amazon. I will definitely put a the web thing link. Oh my god. Apparently today is another good day. I'll put a link in the description below, as I usually do, if you're interested in buying the book. If not, I'll be reading the whole thing on here, so it's really up to you. I mean, I do my books just for me, so, you know, anyone want it, that'd be awesome, but, you know, whatever. But yeah, I'll leave this here, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Bye!